Hey, it's Courtney Barriger, your host of Environmental Style Now, the A to Z podcast on all that is sustainable fashion. So, I just took a year off to finish my book refashion workshop with Collective Ink Books, and I am so happy to return to the soundscapes of eco fashion and bring you a new round of guests. So, on this episode of ES Now, we're going to explore the world of natural dyes with expert Julie Wojtkiewicz, educator and designer at Inseparable. Hey, I'm Courtney Barriger, and on this episode of ES Now, I have special guest Julie Wojtkiewicz, who is going to take us on a journey of the what, why, and how-to of natural dyes. Julie is a textile dyer and co-founder of Inseparable, a toxic-free and healthy fashion brand using entirely natural dyes to color clothes. Now she's going to tell us the pros and cons of dyeing fabrics yourself and walk us through how to do it. Let's jump right in.
Thank you so much for having me, Courtney. So I discovered natural dyes back in Malaysia. So back in 2012, I decided to pursue my studies in Malaysia. And I remember being really fascinated by the local craftsmanship. And I was on a small island at some point, and I remember this lady running this beautiful batik workshop. So batik is kind of a hand printing technique that is involving design, like pattern design, but also natural dyeing. So the power of plants, that you boil to create some colors. So I remember attending this workshop, and I was absolutely amazed by this lady just using tropical plants around her and dyeing, fabric and making beautiful designs. So I learned a little bit at that stage. It was like an introduction to natural dye, but for me, it was just it really stuck to me at this point, and I was really young, and I was like, "Wow, I didn't know that it existed, that you could actually dye with plants." So then I think it kind of stayed with me, and I experimented a little bit more on my side. And when I came to the UK, so back in Europe, I was thinking, how can I use it with stuff that we have around us? Because obviously in Malaysia they've got so much, tropical plants or even like trees that can create those beautiful colors. So I was quite intrigued how we can use it as well back home, and I started experimenting in my kitchen. So that's very much how I got started. Back, yeah, it's been a while now.
That is so fascinating, and how fun to just go through your backyard and pick things and see how they turn out. Um,
Yeah,
how,
especially with all the different seasons as well. Like you have, in autumn you can find like obviously beautiful leaves, and those will give you a color. But obviously in summer you've got all those beautiful flowers. So yeah, depending on the seasons that we see, that you've got different type of ingredients, flour, etc. to use. So it's also very, very nice, and very nice to be in touch with nature.
that is really cool to think about seasonal dyeing. Have you ever done a collection with a seasonal dyeing? Because that would be a great idea.
It would be a really good idea. I have it in the back of my mind. I haven't done it. Well, actually, in this autumn, well, last autumn, we used mostly like coffee, tea, so more like cozy ingredients, that you would use in your home. So like the coffee, the tea, chocolate. So we've used that to actually create brown colors to dye onto our underwear and our kind of t-shirts. So yeah, you can say that we've been using it, but I would love to do more of that, like seasonality into a collection as well. I think that would be very interesting. Yeah, food for thought.
Yeah, it's a fun experiment idea. I would love to watch and see what happens with that. So, just for people who don't know the difference, what are natural dyes and how are they different from conventional dyes?
Absolutely. So natural dyeing is very much using like natural ingredients. So like plants, minerals, or insect sources to dye your fabric. In comparison to, I guess nowadays in the textile industry, because we have this huge mass consumption, we had to create man-made fabric, so synthetic fabric like polyester, nylon, spandex, etc. And to dye those, we have to make synthetic dyes because you can only use natural dyes on natural fabric. It's a very natural process. But obviously, with the high consumption into the fashion industry, we had to create man-made fabric and then man-made dyes. And those synthetic dyes, unfortunately, they contain a lot of harmful chemicals, such as heavy metals, azo dyes. So it's a lot of complicated word, but just to say that they contain very like toxins that are very impactful for the environment and our health. And they are obviously like they create more predictable colors. So it helps creating those vibrant colors on a polyester dress. It's more predictable in a sense, where natural dye can be a bit unpredictable, but it's also the magic of using natural dye. But I guess, yeah, in our D&H, it can be just hard to have that slow approach to the fashion industry. And that's why, yeah, a lot of those high street brands will be using synthetic dyes and synthetic fabric.
That makes a lot of sense. I didn't really, in my mind, like pair them together, but that's really interesting that the natural dyes don't take a hold of the polyester, and I wonder why, but that's probably like a chemist question.
Yeah, probably, yeah. And obviously polyester is made of plastic. So it's hard for an ingredient to actually stick, because in the process of natural dyeing, we have to think of the process. So to naturally dye, you'll be using natural fabric, because the natural fabric will absorb all the ingredients and the color within the fruits. But part of the process, we also have what I call pre-dyeing process. So how we use like a fixative, or what we call a mordant, which will help bind the color into your fabric. So you can use anything from, I mean, a lot of people use vinegar, for example, or soya milk. I use alum, so alum potassium, which is a salt mineral. So the salt will actually help bind the color onto the fabric. So it's a longer process that is been using by generation, and it's a very artisanal and ancient technique. I guess with plastic and polyester in that sense, it's just hard to yeah. I don't. It's not possible to use natural dye, and it will not stick to the fabric, unfortunately. But it's also the beauty of natural dye is that you're surrounded by beautiful ingredients and beautiful and high quality fabric. And it all works together because it's part of nature. When man-made stuff is not.
Um, Walk me through like a day in the life, like if you were to set up to dye, to do a dye bath, what all is involved?
Absolutely, yeah, sure. So it's quite I would say for anyone willing to start, natural dyeing, it's very accessible. So you just need, kitchen, couple of utensils. So I always recommend like using old stuff. If you have like an old saucepan and then wooden spoon, old stuff, because obviously the natural dye will stain. But yeah, it's just, for example, well, what I like using is upcycle fruit. So if you go to your farmer market or your supermarket, You might get like upcycle stuff, or for example, at the end of the farmer market, you might have, waste. So feel free, to ask the farmers, can I take it? So I always kind of, like to start my day like browsing around, finding like beautiful ingredients. And then, you just basically, um, it's a very magical process. So you don't have to get any expectation in terms of how it's going to look like. So yeah, in my kitchen, I'll start just experimenting. So I will use the pre-dyeing process to obviously pre-treat the fabric. So in terms of natural fabric, you can use anything from wool to cotton to silk. So depending on your preferences, really. At Inseparable, we use a lot of organic cotton, silk, so beautiful and rich fabric, really. And then, I'll just start experimenting. So it depends what kind of result or what kind of design you have in mind. What I like to do is immersion dyeing. So it's very much like, boiling your ingredients, that will create a bath dye. So you will see all these beautiful colors turning out into your saucepan. And then you can kind of immerse the fabric into the saucepan. So that's one kind of technique. Another one that I really like using is called bundle dyeing. So it's, once you pre-treated your fabric, you just spread around different type of ingredients. I like to do it with flowers because I think it's very therapeutic and it's beautiful to touch. You get the scent and the touch of the different like petals and the colors, and you just like spread it around. You add a little bit of blueberries and whatever really you have or the season kind of brings you. And then you can kind of roll it and create a little bun, and you kind of steam it. So I use actually the dumpling kind of steamer. And it really gives like beautiful scent once it kind of steam in your kitchen. So it's very therapeutic and mindful practice, but I would say like it's very easy to get started. It's very accessible. You don't have to use anything fancy. And yeah, I feel like even you can ask your neighbors, like you can create a little community. That's what I've been doing, like asking my neighbors, can you give me your onion skins? And, in that sense, it creates a little bit of a community project as well. And it's free. So, I think it's really simple to get started, and it's a very therapeutic and mindful practice to slow down in your day, I feel.
Wow, that is just so beautiful to think about, the steaming. I'm like, that sounds lovely.
Yeah, and the smell is just in all in your house, really. You kind of get different scents, and yeah, the color kind of spread out as well onto your fabric, and it's just give this beautiful design with different patches of colors. And yeah, I think that's one of my favorite technique to use because it's very unpredictable. You have no idea what the ingredient might give you, what it's going to turn out to, depending on how long as well you leave that little bun steaming, that it might give you different colors, different shapes. And it's like you're almost giving that ingredient a second life. So it's a really nice like yeah kind of analogy.
Wow. And and the process too, if you like say you do the steaming for longer, does the color get like richer or does it get darker or like how does that change things if you dye it for a longer amount of time?
Yeah, the color can actually get richer depending on the ingredients. It can turn out darker and richer, but it really depends the ingredient that you use. Some of them might just give you the same exact color, no matter how long you actually leave it in the bath or on your fabric. And some ingredients, like I'm thinking berries, they can really get darker and darker as you leave it longer, because they're very rich in tannin as well. So tannin is basically what helps binding the color onto the fabric. So onion skins, for example, they are brilliant at doing that. They will very much stay and get richer and richer onto your fabric just because they're very high in tannin. And berries as well, they're really, really good in that sense. But for example, a petal of flower might just give you the exact same color, staying, 5 minutes or an hour onto your fabric. So yeah, I think they are probably less they probably have, well, depending on the flower, but they probably give less of that rich color. So if you're looking for something light, petal flowers are really good.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So if you were to start this in your house yourself, basically you're saying you need like a big pot, a big spoon, maybe some vinegar.
Some vinegar, salt.
Salt.
I use alum potassium, but you can use salt. Some textile dyers use soya milk. So yeah, depending on your preferences, you can use, but it's very basic, ingredients that you can find in your drugstore. So it doesn't have to be very complicated. And at first, yeah, just start using, I don't know, old t-shirt, old, cotton t-shirt that has a lot of stain, or tablecloth, or yeah, anything that maybe your grandma linen, dress, like something in your wardrobe, and yeah, you can just get started. And yeah, I think the magic about it is just understanding what the ingredient is going to give you, because each ingredient will be different. And as well, like when I talked about the unpredictability of the ingredients, it's quite surprising how the results that some ingredients might give you just because of their background. So what I mean by that is that if we take an avocado, if the avocado, for example, comes from Peru and the other one comes from Kenya, you might have different colors from those two different avocado because of the journey that they went on. So depending on whether they have been frozen onto the journey, or what happened during the journey, might give your avocado a different color during the natural dyeing session. Avocado is quite surprising. I think a lot of people think it's a green color. It gives like this green color, but it actually gives like a pink and peachy color. But depending on, yeah, the journey of the avocado, it will depend. It will the color will vary as well. So yeah, that's what I find quite interesting, is that just try different ingredients and see how it look and how you feel. And yeah, I think this is a very interesting and magical process, because it's quite unexpected.
God, I would imagine. I would never expect an avocado to be pink. Like,
Yeah, I think that's the most surprising fact about avocado. A lot of people think it's just gonna give green because inside it's green, but the pit and the skin will give this beautiful blush pink color. So yeah, that's really nice.
that sounds really lovely. Um, what would you say are your top three favorite plants to use?
Yeah, it's hard. But I would say sappanwood is definitely one of my favorite. So sappanwood was the tropical plant that was used in Malaysia when I first attended that workshop. So I think I've got a very, like, an emotional connection to it. But also it gives the most beautiful orangey red tones. So during summer, I really like this kind of coral and pink, orangey tones. So that's kind of my favorite color to wear. So yeah, I think I have a really high preference with sappanwood, and it's quite like you can kind of rely on sappanwood. It gives you this exact color. Well, depending on how you obviously dye with it, but you're pretty sure it will give you that orangey tone. So I like that one. And as I said, I use a lot of upcycled ingredients. So onion skin for me is one of my favorite to dye with because it's something that we use every single day. We cook with onions pretty much all the time, and we tend to throw the skins, but actually reusing that and seeing like this beautiful yellow mustard color that is so rich, and especially during autumn is it giving you that very cozy vibe. So I really like onion skin. And also it's very high in tannin, so which means the color doesn't fade away. It really sticks to your fabric. And obviously it has great health properties. So something to know about natural dye is that when you're actually dyeing your fabric, let's say you're dyeing a scarf that you wear around your neck and you use turmeric or onion skin, so ingredients that have a lot of antibacterial or antioxidant properties that we often use for skincare purposes. It's actually really good as well for your skin. So when you wear that scarf, it will benefit, like of those beautiful properties will benefit your skin, or in your hair, for example. So I really enjoy, onion skin, turmeric, things that are going to be good for you. And then berries during the summer, I just love berries because it's everywhere in the bushes. Like you can just pick them up, and I love dyeing with them because it gives that beautiful pink and purple. So obviously tones that are very summery. But yeah, it's very much like I love using things that you can find around and that you can use on a day to day, not complicated things. And I try not to buy too far away from me. Like if I can stay local, it's best. But sometimes obviously you like to, just venture around and see, what the world has to offer. So when I travel, I like to, participate in a workshop and just see, what else is being used to achieve these colors. But yeah, it's always very interesting.
Wild. What are some more what are some more advanced techniques that you could use?
Yeah, there are loads actually, but one that I'm thinking about straight away would be the shibori technique, which is a Japanese technique where you can create a lot of different pattern and design by folding the fabric. So depending on how you fold it, like origami, for example, you can create different shapes and different patterns. So shibori is a really good one that I haven't done enough, but one that I'm trying to experiment more. Um, and well, more advanced technique, I think. Um, I'm thinking as well like silk painting. So you can use a lot of natural dye to provide paint. So, for example, indigo is a good example where you can create painting out of the indigo powder. So that's another kind of process, and obviously some painters are using it, but using it on silk is very beautiful because silk is a nice fabric that tends to make the color even stronger and more vibrant. So yeah, and that's one that I really want to try doing more and more. And painting is definitely not one of my strengths. So I would love to like start drawing and start experimenting and using natural dye. I think that would be a really good combination. Silk painting is one. And then obviously like more advanced technique would be using different type of minerals to change the color. So for example, you just create avocado bath. So you just, add your avocado into boiling water and then you wait for the color to pop. But then if you were to add iron, for example, then the color might change. So you can actually use different minerals to change the color and to achieve darker color. I think, for example, black is one that is quite difficult to get, like those dark, brown, black colors is quite a challenge to get that. But iron is actually a really good one to add onto indigo, for example, or another tree bark that is called logwood. So if you're mixing some minerals with natural dye, you can actually get some of those darker tones. Um, yeah, something that, like even though I've been experimenting with natural dyes for probably the past 10 years, there are always things that you're learning, and like it's always an ongoing process. And there are a few things that I'm still like experimenting as well. So but yeah, using different minerals and different ingredients can lead to different colors. So that's a technique that you can try as well.
And are there any like drawbacks for natural dyes? Like for example, does the color fade faster? Or yeah, what oh yeah, I also have questions about aftercare as well.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I would say the main drawback with natural dyeing is the unpredictability of the color. So you might, as I said earlier, that avocado, that example of an avocado, you might be like, yeah, I'm gonna achieve this beautiful pink tone, and actually it comes back peachy. So when you're obviously, like, for example, for us at Inseparable, we are planning a collection with, different color designs, etc. It can be a little bit tricky if, the actual ingredient is not giving you the color that you want to achieve. So that would be one. And then obviously, natural dyeing is a slow process compared to synthetic dyes. So as I said, we need to, pre-treat the fabric, and then you are building your little bath. So all of these steps takes time. I would say probably if you are focusing on one, for example, one fabric that you really want to dye, and you've got, 3 days in front of you, it will take those 3 days. So it's a very slow process. So when you're building as well a sustainable fashion brand, you'll have to take that into consideration, that the production length might be, a lot longer than if you were using synthetic dyes. But it's such a slow and beautiful process that, it's so rewarding, from obviously the person that is doing it to, I feel, the end user, like the end customer, because people appreciate that, they're wearing something that is so unique and so close to earth. So yeah, but it can be an inconvenience to some brands. And as you said, I guess, is the color fading away? Depending on how you've been, treating your fabric, it should not. And most of the ingredients, well, there are a lot of ingredients that you can use that have this rich tannin, so they will bind very quickly to the fabric. So, and if you have a really good aftercare, then the color should not fade away. So yeah, you have to be more careful, maybe also as a end customer, like as a customer owning beautiful fabric that are naturally dyed. You have to be a bit more conscious about how you're caring for each piece to make it last longer. If you put it in a washing machine at a very high temperature, maybe the color won't stay as much. But would the synthetic dye stay as long with the same aftercare? I'm not sure either. So yeah, but it is overall, I would say it's just a slower process. That's why I think a lot of brands might feel a little bit intimidated to go into the natural dyeing space, but it's such a rewarding and magical process.
It sounds like it. Maybe yeah, maybe it's just a like hand wash or use it,
Yeah,
everything on delicate if you are going to use a washing machine. That's what I
yeah.
do anyway, because I feel like washing machines are brutal to clothes.
Yeah, they are. They are. And yeah, if you want to, obviously, if you have high quality fabric, you want them to last in your wardrobe as much as, as possible. So yeah, I would say like hand wash or like a cold wash maybe, if that's something that, yeah, if you're a bit restrained with time. But yeah, that's how I feel that most of us should be, treating our clothes anyway to make them last longer. So it's just a habit to kind of build. And yeah, I think brands should also raise a bit more awareness towards that, because otherwise, yeah, it's easier to just buy something, don't wash it properly, and then buy again.
And, eh, totally. Um, what advice do you have for new hobbyists that are just getting started?
Just go for it. It's such a beautiful craft and hobby to have. I think, we talk a lot at the moment about the connection with your body, with nature, practicing a little bit more mindfulness activities. And I feel like for me, this is almost like my meditation. So meditation can be in different shapes. And it's so therapeutic because you're surrounded with plants, with, beautiful ingredients, with beautiful smells. And also you're doing something very creative. So that opens up your mind. You might find yourself, feeling very artistic, and discovering that you've got a beautiful talent. So yeah, I feel just go for it. Even if you have just I don't know, 30 minutes, an hour in front of you, it's just about, getting that practice and almost like fitting in, like you would do for a yoga session. But yeah, I feel like you might fall in love very quickly with natural dyeing. It's such a beautiful thing to do. And as well, if you have children and kids, it's a nice activity to share, because kids are, when I run workshops with kids, they're very amazed by, oh, I'm eating those blueberries, but I can also paint with them, or and they use their hands and they get dirty, and they love it. They love experimenting and they get curious, and you want to open their minds, up, towards their creativity and exploring that, but also making sure that, well, educating towards like um environmental bits as well. So yeah, just go for it. It's just such a beautiful activity to have.
It's so, yeah, like I'm inspired now. You've inspired me. Because I live in the jungle and I'm gonna go walk around and think like, oh, I wonder what color this would make. And I'm
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna see plants a little bit differently, which is just awesome.
definitely. You tend to do that. Yeah, you tend to also look for certain planes. Like obviously I never studied, chemistry. Like I was not really good at chemistry and I never studied plants, but I tend to be like, oh, I recognize this plant now. I know the name. So yeah, you tend to know them a little bit better and understand, feel a bit closer to Mother Earth as well. But have you started experimenting yourself, or have you
I
tried?
I tried I have an art group with some girlfriends here in Tulum, and we did a day where we did natural dyes, and I think we made a mistake in that when we put the shirts and things in the dye bath, we didn't take out any of the remains of the
Mm-hmm.
bark and stuff, so everything was like patchy and kind of funky.
Yeah, that happens. Create some shapes.
Yeah, we all took it out and we're like, well, that's not what I expected, but hey, I mean, I like it. I'll wear it. Sure. It's cute.
Yeah, you kind of learn as well. Like you're like, do I like this, or do I not enjoy it that much? Then you kind of learn like what's best. If you want to, some ingredients you can keep, like onion skin, you can keep. It's not going to create any patches, but some other ingredients might. But you kind of learn, yeah, along your journey.
um, why don't you tell me a little bit about your brand, actually?
Oh, well, absolutely. So I started Inseparable in June 2023. So yeah, with the desire to really create this brand that will almost with a dream, you know. I feel like it's very much a dream of that willingness of having a sustainable brand from A to Z. So really creating, you know, while sourcing beautiful fabric and dyeing everything, and hand making everything, you know, locally. So I really wanted to also bring the craftsmanship back in the country. And yeah, so we started in June, producing beautiful like dresses, like feminine and very comfortable pieces that women can obviously wear at all times, but they feel that, you know, it's super like comfortable, but also it's super elegant. So you can kind of wear it all day and night. And last autumn, we have just launched our essential collection. So with underwears and basics, because I was very aware of the fact that, you know, everything that we put on against our skin, obviously, our skin is our largest organ. So very much thinking, okay, like thinking backwards, we've got beautiful pieces, but we also wear so many different layers or things that are against our bodies that are, you know, made with synthetic fibers and synthetic dyes and that are not safe for our bodies or the environment. So yeah, bringing everything backwards and creating a safe and toxic free essential collection. So we have it now on the website, and we will be releasing more colors, especially now we're heading to Valentine's Day and Mother's Day here in the UK. So we'll have more varied colors for the underwear and basics.
Oh, beautiful. I can't wait to check it out. Where can
Thank
we connect
you.
with you?
Absolutely. So our website is www.shopinseparable.com, and you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at shopinseparable.
A huge thank you to Julie of Inseparable Clothes for everything that you just taught us and for your passion and commitment to sustainable clothes. I have to say, I'm definitely going to check you guys out. Now, this brand is out of Kent, and it was created to bring this timeless, versatile, and feminine pieces to live and dance in all adventures. So look her up, shopinseparable.com, and thanks for listening. That's a wrap.
Hi, this is Michelle from Washington, D.C. Yes Now is a Holding Court production. It is written and produced by the very talented Courtney Barricher, with music by Parker Ainsworth, and a special thank you to Alexandra Shuck.